I lowered my eyes and pretended to be intent on the watercolor I was copying over in the afternoon light, struggling through the western window. I don't know why I cared what maids thought, or why I acted as though restarting a fire to heat my own room was something to be ashamed of. After a moment, one said, "Humph!" and the other echoed her, and they left. I sighed, glad to be alone, but then Madame Bisset, my decorum instructor, arrived in a flurry. If it had been someone else, I would have said she was disheveled and flustered, but, of course, Madame Bisset never allowed herself to be anything but absolutely perfect in bearing and dress. Every gleaming silver hair was in place. Every one of the 52 tiny mother-of-pearl buttons that marched up her dress was precisely fastened in its loop. But she looked as though she'd given thought to appearing disheveled, as though circumstances might warrant it from anyone else. "Princess Cynthiana Eleonora?" she said sternly as she sat down, discreetly arranging the yards and yards of fabric in her skirt so she would be comfortable on the sofa. "I have heard a rumor." The unfamiliar name and title jarred, as always. I had only recently managed to stop myself from looking around when people addressed me like that. A princess? Where? Oh, that's right. Me, sort of. "Madame? A rumor?" I murmured, trying to get the pronunciation of Madame exactly right. The day before, Madame Bisset had chided me for how she lowered her voice to whisper the horrifying phrase, "common," my French sounded. This Madame evidently passed muster, because Madame Bisset's frown didn't deepen immediately. So I worried instead that I was breaking some rule against echoing another speaker's words. But no, it was my father who had opposed that. I could hear his dry voice. "I'd prefer to hear an original thought, if you have one." I couldn't imagine Madame Bisset caring about my thoughts, original or otherwise. "A rumor," she said firmly. "Now, normally, a cultured woman doesn't listen to rumors or gossip. Au contraire, one must hold oneself above such crudity. But this rumor is so appalling, it must be dealt with. And since I am the person responsible for instilling you with a sense of etiquette, I mustn't shirk." She sniffed daintily and dramatically, fully conveying both her dedication to her responsibilities and her distaste for the subject she was about to discuss. In my first few days in the palace, when I still dared, I would have joked, "You mean it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it?" But I'd learned. "Now, the servants are saying..." Her inflection on servants carried the full weight of her disgust at being put in a position of having to quote servants. "The servants are saying you lit your own fire this morning." "I did," I said in a small voice. Madame Bisset gasped and went pale. She leaned back against the sofa. I wondered if I was going to have to call for smelling salts. "You must never do that again," she said in a surprisingly firm voice. "Never." A proper young lady would have bowed her head in shame and murmured, "Yes, Madame Bisset." But no one had thought of training me to be proper until 2 weeks earlier, so my instincts were all wrong. "Why?" I asked, truly curious. Madame Bisset gasped again, as if I were beyond hope if I had to ask. She took a deep breath, as deep as her corsets allowed, anyway. "You have no idea why you shouldn't light your own fire." It was a question without being a question. A trick. I'd be rude to answer it, perhaps interrupting her next thought, but I'd be more rude not to answer.